main thing that includes financial intelligence is this formula.
Yeah, the Robert Kiyosaki quadrant, no?
Not quadrant exactly, but everything like looks like a quadrant. Definitely,
Mhm.
lots of these shapes.
Mm.
Great, and यहाँ पे quadrant भी बनते हैं कैसे? So it is assets, liabilities, and then there is income and expenses. So there are things in your assets, one, two, three, four, five, six. So what are assets are? You know what assets are?
Assets are something that bring more income to you.
Nice.
And
And what
liabilities are
liabilities?
something that drain you financially. They're liabilities.
Exactly, exactly. So these are, these exist as, those systems within your life. So for example, this is your life, and there are certain components within your systems, life systems, and there are some components that drain you and some components that recharge you.
Mm.
So for financial systems, those subcomponents that recharge you are assets, and those subcomponents that drain you are liabilities.
Mm.
So the thing is, we have certain assets and liabilities, and what happens is that for a person on lower cash flow quadrants, not lower exactly, the main thing is that there is a dynamics between them. So the larger number of assets you have, the more amount of income you will also having, aside from the main income source that you have.
Mm.
And the larger amount of liabilities you have, the more amount of expenses you will be having. So what happens that you have a certain amount of income, and what happens is that that income usually goes into expenses or those goes into liabilities. There is usually no any process that fills you up into the components that recharge you financially.
Mm. Mm.
And thus what happens in that in the train of life, the list of liabilities will increase unconsciously because
Mm.
everything, almost everything you pile up is liability. Furniture, all the appliances, all kind of, housing, all of
Mm.
them, they are the things which drain you unconsciously. For example, anything that needs to get fixed because it has reached this age or something,
Mm.
and those things that require maintenance and certain things, that thing like, for example, if you have a car and it suddenly got, stuck, in traffic, it got hit, and then you have to do the denting painting, and or
Mm.
your engine got malfunctioned, you have to like change the engine oil, everything. Your tire got, worse, so you have to change the tires. So all of
Yeah,
these are
so car is a
liabilities.
liability. Mm.
Hmm. All of these are liabilities. So there is a portion of car that is an asset, which is that it gives you the facility to move around and places to places. So that is an asset in a sense that you would not have to pay uh, for taxis that would cost you more than the car. But the portion of car that is liabilities is also exists. So the thing is balance between assets and liabilities. It should also come here. So you cannot just, blindly name all things into liabilities. It may also have a function as an asset.
Right.
So, hmm, so that is one thing. And it is not fully black and white. There are also gray aspects, and there is dark gray and light gray kind of thing. So uh, this would help you like understand like what actually assets here are, what actually liabilities are,
Mm.
and this thing also applies to all domains of life. It is like interdisciplinary also, like with in respect to like relationships and other things also. Yeah, and how like having more assets can make your life more fulfilling. Relational domain also, this thing also works that way.
Okay.
Hmm. So the thing is, the amount of expenses are always there that drains you, that keeps on increasing. First of all, by inflation and inflation plus plus, and then there is income is not increasing. Income equals x equals So income is not increasing and the inflation is getting plus plus. And what happens is that you have less cash flow. So income minus expense equals cash flow. So income minus expense is cash flow. So if income is staying the same, inflation is increasing, what happens is that you have a less of a cash flow than less cash flow. And what is happening on the global scale that people are continuously, middle class, lower middle class, and even upper middle class, due to increasing taxes all around the world, they are
Mm.
left with less cash flow.
Mm.
They are drained
Living from paycheck to paycheck.
hmm, and left with less cash flow. And due to unoptimized financial systems, what happens is that uh, they have failed to, cope with the increasing demands of the reality. Or, for example, or say they fail to move beyond the limitations, that are coming with this increasing complexity. They're drained and left with less cash flow and less optimized systems drain them even more. What would be the optimization in these financial systems? The optimization of the financial systems would be,
Less expenses.
first of all, reduction of
Decreasing
liability.
the liabilities. Yeah.
Hmm. Uh, you said it right about less expenses, reducing also, budgeting, optimizing budgeting,
Mm.
and reducing liabilities, and start developing assets. So it comes to that.
Okay.
So in simple words, it is the financial intelligence comes not only to like spend less, earn more, and save more, and invest more. It does not only comes to that, but it also comes to main thing is like avoiding unwise decisions at critical times
Okay. Regarding finances.
regarding finances. Because what happens is that most of the major finances that people invest in are not strategically planned. They are subconscious emotional impulses. For example, someone want a bike and they want a bike so bad that they would get it on an EMI, and the bike would equal to their whole net worth even at some times. And some people who are on a job are of around 25,000 INR, they want an
Mm.
iPhone just to show off to others, and they would get it on a EMI. Even if they have rents and everything, they want to pay 5,000 to 6,000 EMI for iPhone because they want to, express that standard of living. So
Mm.
that drains months and months of that, paychecks, and that could have gone into assets, but it is just a, product of a show off. It is not even providing any resource in the sense of any project that they are going in. For example, if someone is doing content creation and they want a phone with good camera, it can be an asset, but they are not even doing that. They are just using it for show off. So that then
It
becomes,
is simple.
a draining element.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes away, months and years of the hard work into nothing. It is like you have done something and you are like shoving it off the drain.
Mm.
So that is the thing. Unwise decisions. So to avoid unwise decisions, the main thing that comes up is the awareness of your own financial systems that most people lack.
Okay.
Awareness of your own financial systems and its limitations, and that would include understanding its workings, its good points, bad points, advantages and limitations, and इसी हिसाब से budgeting
Exactly.
and future-oriented strategizing. Hmm. So now it must have become like much clear to you that financial intelligence is not just about saving, spending less,
Saving
earning
and
more.
this. Mm.
It is also about understanding how these systems operate interchangeably. And the main element here is the cash flow. Or it's all a game about cash flow. So cash flow is like, offspring of all of the system. And all of the system works on the offspring, that is cash flow. And
Mm.
cash flow is the only leverage that people have, especially when they are in the lower class and middle class.
Mm.
Wait a minute. Palestine. Yes. So where are we?
Cash flow.
Cash flow. So cash flow is the only leverage that we have. So cash flow is your income minus expenses. So it is the only power that we have at in particular month. For example, for self-employed, it is like much more evident, like they know that they can get money at more times than the one in employee, because employee just get your paycheck at the end of the month. So that
Mm,
time, at the end of the month, whenever you get your paycheck, it is their critical point in life, that decides their trajectory, that how they would move along. So how they would be managing their finances, what they need to get things in their life, as in groceries and other plannings, and what other things that they need to do. It is like someone received a burst of power, a light, and they are deciding that what to do with this.
right.
And then the thing comes in at that time, most of those people who do not have adequate understanding of their financial systems, and then what implications of their actions would have on their future trajectory and their financial systems future trajectory, which is very critical if you want to live an abundant life, and if you want to live a financially independent life, if you dream to live that kind of life.
Mm,
So here the things comes up is that understanding cash flow. So cash flow comes up. So there is like income minus expenses is just for your month that you are seeing. That if you are getting an income X amount, and if you are getting you have a certain limited of expenses. For example, if you have your income of 1 lakh rupees in INR, and you have expenses that piles up to around 70 or like 65,000 INR. So what happens is that, can you hear me?
yeah, yeah, I can hear you.
So what happens is that these liabilities also add up to your expenses. So you have a certain expenses for your month, for example, these groceries and everything. And then you also have these liabilities that add up to your expenses that sometimes you cannot foresee unless you know that there are these liabilities in your life, and that may show up in your expenses also. For example, suddenly some certain thing in your house starts malfunctioning, or you got ill and you had to pay for your medical expenses.
Mm,
There are certain things that you cannot foretell, and that also adds up to your expenses. So instead of 65, it sometimes can become 85,
right.
and then what you are left with is 15,000 INR or dirhams or whatever currency.
Mm,
So what happens is that when this 15,000 is left, what happens is that most of the people that live a linear life, a linear unreflective life, what happens is that suddenly they have a plan with their friends and they are moving on to a mall. They're exploring things, and what happens is that you're seeing like a lot of people like spending a lot into like they are enjoying tasty foods and enjoying like hefty restaurants, and they are buying like costly purses and things, and that compels you to buy things that you actually don't need, just because the aura of that a whole mall or shopping complex is designed in a way to promote shopping. So all of
consumerism.
these things,
Yeah.
consumerism, exactly, consumerism, it is like consumerism architecture. The whole system of the capitalism is designed on the consumerism architecture, and what
Mm,
happens in that is that it compels you to buy things you do not need. All ads constantly bombarded onto you that makes you believe that you need certain things to look or feel beautiful, or you need certain things to catch up to the standard of living to those who are so-called professed rich and so-called role models, stars of the society. So they constantly impress an image upon the society that you need certain things this way. What happens is
mm,
that also if you go explore, if you remember, in the malls there is no seats, there are no
mm.
that much of seats for sitting. It is like, if I go to
They have
mall.
architected very less sitting because people have they want people to continuously keep walking through the shops.
Yes, exactly. And I also have had an experience where I went to buy a shirt, and
Mm,
a shirt and some clothes, and what happened is that I got tired of like viewing a lot of options, and there were no seats, and I was continuously walking and walking, and my mind shuts off my rational processes, and it went on to the emotional processes, and it was like, like we had seen that option, and it felt nice, and just get final with it, and let's move on with it. And I decided like that, and now I'm regretting
Mm.
that shirt that I bought.
Ah. So because you're tired, you end up buying whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, कि चीज तो खरीदनी है, and थक भी गया है, let's just do this, let's end this shit.
माय गॉड, कितना डीपली सोचते हैं ये लोग.
डीपली हमें भी तो सोचना पड़ेगा ना, अगर हमें बियॉन्ड करना है इनके.
Yeah, that needs awareness, no? Unless and until you're aware
Exactly.
of these things, how will you
Definitely.
so deeply?
And what about the common consumer who do not know things that, all the architecture is based just to, like fool them on buying things they do not need. Middle
Exactly.
class, middle class do not, like they do not have this, privilege to afford these kinds of things in the mall. And most of the people that exploring the mall are middle class just because they want to see that, like good things that are out there, that is like looking shiny
Mm.
and bright. And what happens is that they
Mm.
end up buying things that they do not need just because these things makes them feel that I deserve to be in that, thing from this kind of, luxury or this kind of class, just to fit in, just to fit in, just to feel get a sense of belongingness. All of those big posters of, grand models, of those luxury brands, Rado, Gucci, Versace, Zara, it continuously enforcing in them a sense of, insecurity that,
Mm.
our peers have these things and they have these things, and I do not have a single brand, these kind of things. I should have them. So that constant enforcement, status symbols, everything, it continuously force them to increase their expenses, even if they have a 15,000. We came to hear a cash flow that there is
Mm.
this cash flow, like we got this cash flow 15,000. But what happens is that that also ends up in expenses due to unwise decisions at critical times.
Mm.
And that what makes that, if anything could have gone into like asset, it is then went into liabilities, and it then went into expenses rather than being an asset that could further increase the income and can, make them, help them, move beyond the rat race, the trap, financial trap that they are stuck in.
Mm.
It is a financial trap, a rat race.
True. Rat race. But most of the people are not even aware of it. They think they have normalized this rat race.
Yep. And this rat race, like living paycheck to paycheck and piling up expenses on things that they do not need, and they just feel that they need it because they need to equate their sense of status as an asset. Most of the
Mm.
people think status as an asset.
Mm.
It can be true in a sense that if you are actively and strategically networking towards a cause. For example, you are expanding your sense of your possible investors, and you want to
Mm.
have some good looks, and like you don't like to be present as an ungroomed and lethargic kind of person who looks shabby. You need to have certain good appealing clothes, but they do not even also need to be the Zara, Gucci kind of things. You don't need to wear a watch of Rado or something to impress your investors or employer or anything. Even your friend circle, most of the people who are trying to impress in name of status and assets, they do are not actually assets. They are all judgmental piece of crap, who looks good in front of you and talks shit behind your back. So
Exactly. Mm.
yeah, most of those people are like that. So that status as an asset is not actually an asset. It is just your uh constant a war against judgment of
Mm.
others, judgment of others, which eventually becomes your own self judgment.
Yep.
So it is just one of the trap, that is there. There are a lot of traps. So this is, as the status as active networking and everything. This is just a one kind of trap, that it is mental trap. It is about mental beliefs that are not conducive to financial, intelligence. So it is like
Mm.
anti money belief. I can call it like that.
Right.
So this is just one example, and there are like hundreds of more examples. That mental distortions and cognitive distortions, emotional distortions that leads them to bad and unwise decisions at those critical times.
Mm.
So it is this. So it's income and then expenses, and this is cash flow, and that cash flow is the thing that You can either spend into assets or spend into liabilities. So if you spend into liabilities, it will increase your expenses, and if it will increase your expenses, then you will left with even less income than you have had.
Yeah.
And if you have even less income at a continuous pace, then you have even less leverage to be able to build a better future. That is spending into assets and uh, like it's developing systems that will increase your income, and that is the main trap, by this corporate capitalism is doing. Corporate
Mm.
capitalism and increasing inflation society, leaving people with less and less means to move beyond their present state. So to actually move beyond the present state, now the efforts needed to move beyond the stage. For example, जो हमारे जो दादा थे, our grandfathers at that time, they,
Mm.
even if they were not wise, but at that time when they were wise, and they eventually feel like, like making a good financial decision, they have the capacity, they had the power, because the inflation was not that bad, and they could get a land, if from their, like 6 months salary, they could get a land that could make their family have food for, years, and like generational asset, it could have become
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
from a 6 month
That,
salary.
yeah, exactly. At that time, it was possible.
Hmm. So that was the time, and what has happening by this like this society, and that looks like it is democracy and everything. It is actually, capitalism. It is like
Mm.
corporate capitalism society. That looks like democracy on the outside. It they promote like, like doing good for people and everything. अभी यहाँ पे इंडिया में योजना ला रहे हैं मोदी and everything की 2,500 रुपये हम देंगे औरतों को, and then बीजेपी कह रहे हैं कि हम 3,000 देंगे. Like it's like, they are bribing the voters,
Exactly.
not exactly,
Mm.
helping them in any way. So
Mm.
so this is what is happening, and what then happens is that the inflation is keeping on increasing, and you are left with less cash flow that you can,
Mm.
if you even feel wise at a time, then you have even less power to do anything. And what happens is that due to the amount of less options that you have at that time, you would rather enjoy and move into hedonism, because it is the easiest thing that you can see. पहले के टाइम में क्या एंजॉयमेंट होता था, कि ज्यादा से ज्यादा अपनी बैठक बनाई, एंड यू हैड सम ड्रिंक्स विद पीपल, एंड यू हैड सम गुड
Mm.
टाइम्स. That, but आज के टाइम में there are no, lack of opportunities to spend on liabilities or expenses. You can just go out, on a day to some clubs or anything, and you can spend your whole month's income on that thing.
Exactly.
And you can do that. पहले के टाइम में नहीं हो सकता था, वो चीज पॉसिबल ही नहीं थी, लेकिन आज के टाइम में there is
Mm.
type of opportunities. तो
Totally.
उससे क्या होता है कि अगर किसी का अगर दिमाग अगर एक बारी में जागता भी है, तो उसके पास इतनी कम इनकम होती है कि यार वो उससे एक जनरेशनल लेवल का एसेट नहीं बना सकता. दोस पीपल कैन नॉट मेक अ जनरेशनल लेवल एसेट फ्रॉम दैट thing, because
Mm.
their cash flow is less. And what is happening in the coming times will even become lesser, because inflation is increasing and their income is not. So it will even become lesser. And the amount of liabilities, for example, like the rents are increasing and the taxes on, things are increasing, and they are also getting, costlier. It will even become less. So like cash flow, income minus expenses, and then you have even less leverage that you can spend on assets. So it is very important that this thing should be taken critically
Yeah.
to, because no one knows, what future beholds. And if this society crumbles in the, name of this widening gap, there is this widening economic disparity among the higher rich and the poor, and it will continue to do so. So they will be living in, flying castles, and these peoples would be, like all these homeless peoples living on the streets. It would come to that. So I'm saying, like, I've seen a series. Its name was Altered Carbon, and in that series, the disparity between rich and poor, was so much that in the future it was like the rich were living in flying castles.
Mm. Unequal distribution of wealth, The poorer are
Yeah,
getting more poor and the rich are getting more richer. And middle
definitely.
class are the one who are paying taxes.
Hmm. And the systems for the rich, for example, if you see how the corporate manage taxes, they have a very much leverage on taxes. They just pay taxes on whatever money they have left. And for,
Mm.
us, for the employees, for the self-employed, what happens is that you pay taxes on whatever income you are generating, and then whatever you are left with, you are free to spend that.
Hmm.
So let's discuss that, now also. So
Okay.
there is this four quadrants. So there are these four quadrants. So one is the employed E quadrant, and then there is this self-employed, then there is this business quadrant, and then there is this investor quadrant. So it is one, two, three, four. So these are the kind of stages of cash flow in a way also. So they're not exactly stages. One can also move from, like directly employed to directly business with like good strategic placement.
Hmm.
So they are not exactly limited. So the things comes with it is like uh, there is just like I told you, like employee get their income at only a single time of the month, and at that time of the month they have to like uh, spend into assets and liabilities, and most of the employee don't even spend into assets, and this is why they are continually trapped in a rat race.
Hmm.
And with the self-employed quadrant, what happens is that they have developed a kind of system that through which they can acquire clients for themselves and they can work from them directly without any employer in between. So there is no employer. So for employees, it is like there is this employer, and employer moves on to employee, and then employee gets the cash flow income, and employer gets money from clients. And there may be more things in between, like processes, business processes, and other things. So uh, here is this thing. But whereas in self-employed, there is this self-employed, and he directly have connection with the client, and the income flows for that. What happens is that this employer takes a heavy chunk of income in the process, takes a heavy chunk, and leaves you with crap.
Hmm.
Takes a heavy chunk and leaves you with crap, and they want the employee to work maximum with the minimum income, that is their return of investment. They want the maximum return of investment through the employee. For employer, employee is just a cog in the machine.
Hmm.
No humanistic interpretation of an employee in the capitalistic society. So this is the interpretation of employee quadrant. So whereas in self-employed, what happens is that there is a direct connection with the client. There is freedom of freedom and flexibility of work, but there is similarly increased pressure due to work demand and growth, work growth. Because if you want to grow in self-employed industry, you need to be constantly working out,
Yeah.
which also creates burnout. And this works on this edge of hyper specialization in the industry. And this hyper edge of specialization is a double-edged sword, as it it gives you recognition at the expense of workout or burnout. So you get that E quadrant. So there is within this employee quadrant, there is this linear income model. You got the linear income model. What it is it earning a fixed amount based on their wage or salary, and income is paid at regular intervals. And there is this finite earning potential because income is directly tied to time and effort, and there is only a limited amount of time that you can give to the work,
Right.
and your value for effort of your that your income you get, the value of your effort is decided by your employer here. He decides what you are worth of.
Hmm.
So people nowadays fear the judgment of others, but they kind of stand against that if others is becoming judgmental, but they would not stand against the judgment of their employer is being judgment of their time and effort is the value.
True.
So there is dependence of external structure. This is one of the major blocks that limits any employee to move beyond this employee structure because the dependence is very strong. The employee depends on this external entities like this company, industry, or government to maintain their financial stability. They are vulnerable to economic downturns, layoffs, and organizational changes that can disrupt their cash flow. This is one of the most important dependence and one of the more destabilizing dependence within this quadrant. There is absence of leverage. Absence of leverage is a complicated concept, and there is no present intelligence within this employee quadrant nor the self-employed quadrant of what leverage actually is, and even the business quadrant. When a person reaches the business quadrant, he starts to understand what leverage is. Leverage is the power of compounding, the power of exponential growth, the power of debt. If you have heard about all the rich people, they are constantly piled up in huge amounts of debts because
Okay.
debt debt is tax free. Debt, if you can
Mm-hmm.
buy anything with debt, it is tax free first of all, and then if you have buy an asset with your debt and you have the money to pay off your debt, then if you have bought anything with your cash, you would have to pay that cash. You have bought something with cash, you have to pay tax on that. But if you have bought something with debt, there is less tax on that. And
Okay.
that thing when added into your asset, that thing when added into your asset, what happens is that you are paying less tax on that, and uh, you are also having that asset that is continuing to pay you income. For example, if you bought a house on debt, that you have paid less on tax on that, and you have the ability to pay that debt off easily, like even in one turn also. And the interest that you are paying on that debt is less than the amount of income that that asset is generating. Then that is not a draining thing. That is a thing that is recharging you. That is a thing that is giving you more income. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So what happens in that case is that what happens in the general case is that most of the people who buy property, they usually buy their houses. And what happens is that when they usually buy their houses through debt, by their home loans and something, they end up, paying uh, the installment as their rent for their houses.
Yeah.
So what happens is that for the people who are actually investing in properties, investing in real estate, what happens is that when they invest in that real estate, they when they buy that, they even send it to rent, so that that building is giving them rent at that instant, and that rent is actually
Mm-hmm.
paying off their installment and also
That's
giving them cash flow.
mm, true.
So what happens is that they have a free income source out of nowhere. So that real
Yes.
estate, this requires a quite meticulous planning that this property actually pays off and is consistent with the long term. So those in active involvement in the real estate can do these things very well. But those actually new to the real estate, they end up doing silly mistakes and buying property that do not even yield returns. So this becomes then a thing of rich, because only rich can afford real estate and only they can get experience in working through real estate. So
Mm.
this also adds up to the financial trap because the opportunities and the world the rich lives in is very different from the ones in the middle and lower ones. Because the opportunity that rich has is very, very much expounding. And it is across the board. It is across the all board. If you talk about any kind of business, any kind of statements, financial statements, or uh, any kind of large scale investments, any kind of real estate, everyone who are rich, they are out of the rat trap. totally, and whatever they are doing, they put themselves on a track to exponential growth. And for the rich, whatever they are, for the poor, whatever they do, they are setting up for a trap of inevitable loss kind of thing, inevitable, slow, painful demise. Because whatever they do, it will not be feel enough how much they are earning. And what happens is that bills keep on piling up, liabilities keep on stacking up, and the amount of money every time, and for the coming years, the amount of money that is left is decreasing every month.
Mm.
So the leverage that they feel that they uh, could be able to do something, they also feel this lack of, powerlessness. They also feel the lack of opportunities in those moments. So that was also increase that despair, and then this mental health and everything declining. The problems that poor people face are not only related to systemic levels. They also feel more problems related to uh, crimes and
Mm.
societal bullying,
Bullying, yes.
judgments, and certain kind of social disparity, which adds up to their capacity, which adds up to the capacity to do better decisions, good decisions. Whereas rich is constantly empowered to buy not only monetary and opportunity, but also by internal motivators. So it is a thing, greatly positive compounding feedback loop, greatly negative degrading feedback loop for the poor. This is why the rich becomes rich and poor becomes poorer.
Yep.
So we were here. So the challenges within employee quadrant. So let's make this bigger. So there is challenges. There is this lack of autonomy that you are stuck with the employer and you are to do the things that employer expect you to.
Mm.
You have little control over their financial destiny, their job, their income, job security, and career trajectory are largely shaped by external factors, leaving them vulnerable to subtle change in their employment status. There is stagnation of wealth creation.
Yes.
So without the ability to generate passive income means the income is generated without your active involvement.
Mm.
So
Second
without,
income.
yeah, second income can also be active income, like part-time jobs, but passive income is like you do not actively contribute to its development. It just gives you, just like rentals on your properties.
Rental. Mm.
So, and or leverage capital, employees can face limited opportunities for building long-term wealth. Their reliance on active income earned through direct labor keeps them tethered from the present with little room for financial growth. So there is fear of risk. The fear of losing perceived stability or a steady paycheck often keeps employees from exploring other financial opportunities, such as entrepreneurship or investing. This fear perpetuates a cycle of dependency and reinforces the belief that financial security is only found through external structure. This is a very strong thing that prevents most of the people to move beyond the rat race. There is this energy exchange. From an energetic perspective, employees are engaged in a stagnant exchange where their labor is traded for money in a fixed, repetitive cycle. This prevents the free flow of creative energy, which could otherwise be used to generate new opportunities and wealth streams.
Mm.
So, this constant exchange where the labor is traded for money, it prevents the free flow of creative energy. For example, if you have a free flow of creative energy where you are getting what you are paid for your actual value that you are providing, and then you are also free to explore new opportunities, because that is the creative energy that goes through, and all your creative energy is going into a limited number of times that you are giving up. That is by trading time for money. Labor is traded for money. So your time is venting into this thing, whereas if you are actually free in a sense that you can explore new opportunities, you can also develop wealth streams.
Mm.
So there is this ways in which you can moving beyond e quadrants. So I would like to reflect on this E quadrant. So, like, you have any reflections on this?
Uh, Not really. I'm trying to understand it.
Okay.
But
So, like, you are like enjoying learning
still,
about it.
yeah, I mean, I know most of it, but
Hmm.
it was never so organized. And this is more
Hmm.
of an organized version of it. So I'm kind of understanding where I stand in this quadrant, and I'm pretty
Definitely.
much standing in that quadrant right now.
Hmm. Definitely. And like these are the nuances of financial intelligence that, like no one in the school taught us and they should have taught us. Uh, it, it it is indeed is, very critical thing that, like everyone should know these things.
Hmm. True.
So there is pathways to evolution. There is shifting from linear to exponential thinking. So it is the ways in which you can evolve from your E quadrant.
Hmm.
So there is shifting from linear to exponential thinking. So the employee's thinking is very linear. It cannot think in compounding ways in which it can maximize its efforts due to the constant reinforcement by the society. Employee thinks that uh, it can only be get paid for whatever he does, whatever he can do, and the only translation of effort through money can only be done by the any employer, and he does not have their ability to turn their own efforts into a kind of chain reaction that can provide them abundance.
Hmm.
So this is this linear thinking that we discussed in the first point. There is this fixed amount of that is earned on the based on wage or salary, and this is a linear thinking. They develop a thinking that is linear, that this constant monthly paycheck is the only way that they can earn income, and
Hmm.
this is the only way that their worth is equated to.
Hmm.
So what happens is that if you want to move beyond this, the employees can begin exploring ways to generate passive income, whether through investments, side business, building assets that can work independently of their time.
Hmm.
So generating passive income is the key here. So what how it can be done is like just we have discussed about this main financial structure. And within that, if you have some cash flow, you can start developing systems of passive income through meticulous planning. It can be anything. It can literally be anything. It can be a side venture or project or like side business or anything. You can even get an employee that can do some things for you, out there, and you can set up a food stall or anything, and you can sell things up, anything, and it can be anything, any business opportunity that you see that are fit to do, and any kind of trading or anything, trading of stuffs, goods, monies, exchanges that you can automate eventually.
Hmm.
So the thing comes in exponential thinking. So the main component of exponential thinking is developing systems. So how the rich become richer is through developing systems that run autonomously without their active engagement and runs and generates income. So if you see all the business all around the world, they are these things. These are those systems that run autonomously without their active engagement and generates income. And the thing then comes in to do that, the capacity required to do that is meta-systematic thinking, which understands how things fit in systems. For example, how a particular business idea fits in the larger economic system. Make sense?
Yep.
Mhm.
Systems.
So this is how the rich becomes richer because they have this their systems, their cog, my wheels, that like how everything they think are, and their all cog machines, they work in themselves. Starting at the beginning, they had to spend time in developing those cog wheels, like certain business process, business ideas, investors, and certain things. But when they made those wheels and then add this, energy box would be the administration, business administration. Administration would be like the managers and everything that manage all the things. It would be the engine for that thing, energy, and then that thing becomes a system in itself. Make sense?
Yeah.
So this is how those people develop these systems. And this is what moving to exponential thinking is, that if you have a lot of these systems, just imagine what you can do. There are endless possibilities. You just need to develop a system, and then you are free to develop another system, and you can just pile up stacks of these systems that can work autonomously and can set you up for life. And you are free to do anything you
Mm.
want. Cultural
Mm.
impact, serving others, and anything, making the world a better place. And even these systems can do these things. How they fit in society is
Mm.
what is required by the reality in a way. For example, a certain product that I developed, for example, uh, a floor mat. I developed a floor mat, and people need this thing because they need to enter their room and they need to clean their shoes. And I
Mm.
made it a approachable thing because it things fits in the reality. Similarly,
Mm.
if I made a product, for example, an ecological organization that works on reducing the making the environment a better place, reducing the pollutions and checking up things and cleaning up the rivers and dirt, because that is required, that thing could stabilize in the system, in the larger system, and it would also generate money. It is about how things fit.
Yeah.
So this is a very high cognitive capacity. This is why most of the startup fails, because this is a very complicated meta-systematic thinking, that how systemic fit works. So this is why it is complicated, and most of the business quadrant, like initiatives fail, and most of them may be like too much advanced for their competence, and they could have also like began establishing some small automated systems before moving on some bigger project ideas. But most of these business ideas are not actually strategic; they run from passion towards certain things, and this is why it is also one of the limitations of certain business strategies. So there is also awakening to autonomy. Well, let's cover this thing only, employee quadrant, and we can
Yeah.
cover other quadrants later.
Later. Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Hmm. So awakening to autonomy, recognizing that financial freedom is not tied to an employer but to one's own ability to create value in the world, is a key breakthrough. Just impress this line in the mind. This would
Mm.
set you free.
Not tied to employment. Once when I play to create value in the world is a great breakthrough.
It is not tied to an employer, but one's own ability to create a value in the world. Embracing risk and uncertainty. This is a very crucial fear of risk that this employee quadrant needs to move beyond. So it requires overcoming of the fear of uncertainty. Employees must become comfortable with calculated risk, understanding that wealth is created by moving beyond the safety net of a regular paycheck. Regular
Mm.
paycheck is a safety net, and that comfort is a rat trap. Employers give the comfort to an employee that they can just come and work there, and they would get the safety net of a regular paycheck. But that is also not a safety net. No one knows when there will be layoffs or any major economic shift in the world. So then there is this financial intelligence, learning the principles of wealth creation, investing, asset building, tax optimization, capital leverage. It empowers individuals to take control of their financial destiny. This knowledge opens doors to business investor quadrants where financial autonomy and scalability are possible. So this simple understanding of financial intelligence can compel an employee to move beyond this employee quadrant because it is seriously incapacitating this quadrant.
Yeah.
So any reflections? End of the line and reflections by you?
Reflection would be to come out of the mindset of, the programmed employee mindset where you have to live paycheck to paycheck and extend your horizon to different ways of making money.
Hmm.
Is what I
Yep,
get from this quadrant, because this quadrant seems very limited to me and it's giving me a
definitely.
shock.
You hadn't known about this depth about this employee quadrant.
I knew about it. I knew about ऊपर ऊपर से कि हाँ 4 quadrants होते हैं and how you have to move, but इतना detail में नहीं पता था.
Okay.
Like how you are like literally stuck in it.
Hmm. Definitely. So it was an eye opener, I see.
Yeah, it indeed was.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is, you do not need to like abruptly move out of the employee quadrant. The thing is, you need to meticulously and gradually start to structuralize your financial systems. This is your financial system. And when you gradually start to structuralize things, you will eventually find ways to add new assets.
Mm,
So it's like, first of all, just do the basic, like health checkup. And after the health checkup, you do the preliminary, like maintenance. Maintenance would be uh, cleaning up liabilities, reducing expenses, managing budgeting, and then this point, basic points. And then you can, as you are having, more flexibility and, more leverage, your leverage would be this cash flow. You can start, developing these assets.